Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be about how to find a therapist that can help you navigate recovery from narcissistic abuse. Stay tuned. So, finding a narcissistic abuse therapist. Before I get into today's content, I want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel if you have not yet, and to give this video a thumbs up if you like it. It really does help my content and help support this whole community. So a while back, I did make a video on how to find the right therapist for you, and there is going to be a little bit of overlap in this video from that video, but I still suggest that you check that video out if you just want to learn about how to find a therapist or how to find a therapist for whatever issue it is that you're going through, because as I'm about ready to talk about, not all therapists are equal. Not to say that there's anything wrong with any particular brand of therapist, it's just that we all tend to specialize in different things. So this video in particular is going to be about how to find a therapist that knows and understands narcissistic abuse. First of all, I want to start out by saying that therapy was one of the keys to my recovery. I don't think I would be here if it wasn't for the therapist that I worked with. And I'm not like trying to toot my own horn because I am a therapist. It's just that it really is an essential key component to so many things. I like to look at mental health the way that I look at physical health, and the fact that we do need to take care of it. And one of the ways that we can take care of it is by going to therapy. And if you've been through narcissistic abuse, it is so emotionally and mentally taxing. You are so lost and confused that it is very, very hard to navigate on your own. And having a talented therapist that really knows about what you're going through can be fundamental in the healing process. So what is it that we look for in a therapist that can really, really help us navigate this difficult time? The first keys that we can look for are key specialties of the therapist. So the specialties that we want to look for in a therapist that can help us overcome narcissistic abuse are going to be things like relationships or emotional abuse. Domestic violence is a good one. And one of the ones that I think that I don't see out there as much that I think is really, really important to a therapist that is treating someone that's been through narcissistic abuse is the word codependency. Now, codependency can be a lot of different things. However, with people that end up with abusive people, there is some degree that we see of a codependent personality. And I do want to make future videos on this, kind of exploring this idea in detail. But people that get trapped in these relationships a lot of the time do have a more codependent personality. This term is often associated with people that end up with people that have substance abuse issues, but it isn't just substance abuse issues. And the codependency part is really the part that needs a lot of attention. It's not the only part that needs attention, but really if you want to see lasting change in yourself, to not end up back into another abusive relationship, to kind of notice the things about yourself that draw you to that, you really do want to work with someone that knows about codependency. And I will be the first to say that I definitely have a codependent personality, and it is still something that I have to actively work on and work through. I've read a lot of books about the topic and obviously explore the topic in therapy myself, and you can learn to overcome it with the help of someone that really knows what they're talking about. So looking for codependency in someone that works with abuse victims is a really, really good step in the right direction. The second thing is to find a therapist that knows about narcissistic personality disorder. Now, this does not mean that they need to treat narcissistic personality disorder. A lot of therapists that work with victims of narcissistic abuse don't actually treat narcissists themselves. They treat the victims or the survivors of narcissistic abuse. However, for a therapist to have a really firm understanding about what you've gone through, they really need to be familiar with the behaviors of a narcissist. So knowing that they know about NPD, they know about narcissism, they know about the behaviors and traits that are associated with a narcissist, they're going to better be able to help you than someone that doesn't know about narcissism. And this is where it can get complicated because there are a lot of therapists out there. I hesitate to use trauma therapist or PTSD or even complex trauma therapist in this video, not saying that those people can't be helpful for you, not saying that those people don't know what they're talking about. It's just that sometimes when people specialize in trauma, there are different types of trauma. There are different brands of trauma. And with how insidious narcissistic abuse can be, it is very important that the therapists know how to treat that brand of trauma. Because there's a difference between a narcissistic abuse survivor and what their experiences are and someone who witnessed or was in a bad car accident or witnessed a bad crime, or even someone that was abused as a child. Family therapist, this is another really blanket term if you're looking for someone to work with you on dealing with narcissistic parents. Make sure that they know about narcissism, because there can be a lot of different branches of family therapy and family dysfunction. The number 3 thing is to find out what their theoretical orientation is. Are they more of a cognitive behavioral therapist, which is more a therapist that addresses immediate behaviors that you want to be changed, immediate thoughts that you want changed? Or are they someone that's more of a psychodynamic therapist? And what that means is they look more at the core inner issues of things. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I think they both can be helpful depending on the issue. But what is it that you're looking to do? Are you doing things right now that you want to change? So do you have behaviors, an expression of things that you want to be different? Or are you more interested in kind of exploring what happened, like what led up to where you're at right now? I believe that everyone's different and can benefit from different approaches and styles of therapy. I don't think that one is necessarily better than the other. Research does support certain types of therapy to be more effective than other types of therapy too. So that is something to look into as well, like what types of therapies do tend to help abuse survivors. Really what I think is best, in my opinion, for narcissistic abuse survivors, and kind of what I cling to, is more of an integrative approach of the two. If someone comes and sees me for something like anxiety or OCD, most likely I'll use straight up CBT techniques to help that person. However, if someone comes to me because they're recovering from narcissistic abuse, straight up CBT techniques, for one, they can come off as a little bit cold, and two, are only addressing the surface issues. So sometimes that isn't very validating. Sometimes it can be really helpful and validating for people to learn how they got to their situation. Like if we're looking at codependency, what are the factors that contributed to that codependency? So if you can find someone that's kind of integrates both camps, that's a good thing. And also one of the benefits to finding someone that does know about CBT too is that they are more honed in on teaching coping skills, on how to cope with how you're feeling and kind of cope through a lot of that anxiety and anger and other things that I've talked about that are associated with recovery. Last thing, if it is possible, and I think the best way to find this out, if they're not openly stating it, would be to interview the therapist, if they feel comfortable in telling you, is to work with someone that has been through a similar situation to yourself. Now this can be hard, not everyone advertises this. I'm very open about myself and my experiences because I believe it really allows me to help people at a deeper level, but some therapists aren't, and that's okay. Kind of similar to substance abuse treatment, if you're working with someone who has been in your shoes before, who has gone through it, has that real life lived experience, it can be incredibly helpful. And that's because it can foster a whole new type of therapeutic relationship. Therapists in general, like what we see with effective therapy, is the connection between the client and the therapist as being a huge part of recovery from whatever issue it is that you're seeking therapy for. And while most talented therapists can make that connection with someone that has gone through something that they don't really have any personal experience with dealing with, if you are able to work with someone who has been in your situation and has overcome it, like it really, really can help really deepen that relationship. I will say that, speaking from my own experience and colleagues and people that I know, a lot of the time, what we choose to specialize in as therapists, we really do have some usual personal connection to it. Even if we didn't go through it ourselves, maybe someone that we're close to did. Maybe trying to kind of find out like what drew the therapist into wanting to work in this demographic. Why do you want to work with victims of narcissistic abuse? Can kind of hone into their personal attachment to the issue. And I think the best way to get an overall view on if the therapist is qualified to help you is to make sure that you interview them. Usually when you go in for a therapy appointment, the first appointment is an interview, it's the consultation. It's usually the interview of you, but don't be afraid to also interview your therapist. It's important that the person you're working with, like that you have a connection with that person, that you trust that person, that you feel you can be open, and knowing that they have the knowledge to be able to help you. Thank you for watching this video. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment box below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to my channel so I can see you in the next one.